Hello and welcome into the Knicks-Verse Midseason Report and pregame live show. With the very first time, this is the premiere showing of Lee Escobedo. Is it Escobedo or Escobedo?
Escobedo.
Escobedo on Into the Knicks-Verse. Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
What's
Great
up,
to have
homie?
you.
Good to be on here, man. I want to give you a shout out at the top of the show. There aren't many Latino Knicks fans doing content creation, and I've always gravitated toward you because you're the most notable and the one doing it the biggest and the best. So I want to give you your flowers while I'm here and saying appreciation. You inspired me to put another brown face out there, and Hispanic last name on some Knicks content coverage. I want to give you props for being the first and the best. So flowers to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. I've been watching you, man, on a Nick of Time show. Loving your vibe there. I'm a big fan of Jay Ellis.
Same.
And I caught you on with was it Dexter Henry?
Yeah,
is that his name on SNY? I thought superb, and I just love your takes, how you phrase your point of view, and and you're willing to take the smoke and give the smoke, but also willing to change your opinion on things.
Indeed.
Which to me, I think that's the key to doing this. If you stick in one lane and you just never deviate from it, and nothing new can change your point of view, then you become kind of rote after a while.
If Julius Randle can change, why can't I?
There you go. Hey, I've put out a lot of content concerning Julius and Coach Thibodeau. People know how I feel about them in particular, but they really have turned a corner this season.
Agreed.
They really have. And what we're going to do is shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. I really appreciate the support, and I'm glad you're here to see Lee the first time here. We're going at it. We literally we've been tweeting at each other, and but really haven't gotten into any major conversations. So you'll be seeing that live for the first time here. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you guys our midseason report cards on the Knicks, on the bench players, the individual players, the starters, and the coach, and then the team overall. And we're going to look at how the Knicks have done all season long in terms of their team stats in comparison to the rest of the league. And then we're going to look at the upcoming schedule, the remaining schedule. We got this graphic from NBA.com that focuses on what are the strengths of schedules of the remaining games, and it shows you the type of schedule that the team has already played. This is for the Eastern Conference, so it'll be interesting. And then we're going to preview the Big Bucks game. Big Bucks game. Shout out to Buzzer Beater. Good to see you, brother. The All-Star, my All-Star roster. That's the next show. The next show we're going to do that. Wanted to do the midseason report first. And Connor Tulin, good to see you, brother. Welcome. Prezi the boss. All right. Well, let's get into it. You ready?
I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
All right. Well, before we jump into it, are there any overarching thoughts that you have about the team's kind of recent play?
Before the season started, Jay Ellis, the great Jay Ellis, my mentor, and the reason that I have any of these opportunities, big shout out to in the Nick Time show. We were debating on the show what our thoughts were projecting the season, and I swung big. I saw the roster and the improvements it made. I saw specifically what Quentin Grimes showed me in the summer league. And I said, this guy can steal that shooting guard spot from Evan Fournier. When RJ takes a leap, Julius returns to form, and Brunson brings what he brought in Dallas. Man, I saw a 50-burger. That's what I said that on the show. And I also agree with Raw Hebrew Remnant that Tibbs would have the best coaching year of his tenure in New York thus far. That has certainly proven true. I think this is Tibbs' best year as a coach. The 50-burger is going to be really difficult because of the strength of our roster, our schedule, moving down the year into 2023. But I still think there's a chance because these guys have really hit a groove, and I don't think we've seen the peak yet. I think the peak is yet to come. We're building that, and I think we're really on this first leg of an improvement race toward becoming a really monstrous defensive team. And once RJ and Obi get back and we figure out that roster rotation, then our full offensive potential will be unleashed.
Hey, I agree with everything you say. I don't think the team has reached its potential at all. And one of the things that I noticed early on in the season was that this team, they were floundering around like just sub 500 for the first 20 games or so. We were actually after the first 23 games, we were 10-13. Especially after that Dallas game that you had to suffer through.
Brutal.
At the summer. Yeah.
I'd boot out the stadium.
Yeah. Man, that must have been brutal. So, I mean, at that moment, things didn't look good, but scoring points wasn't the problem. It was the defense. And I thought, there's no way that a Tom Thibodeau coach team is going to stay this bad defensively. So if they can keep the offense going and then start playing more of that Thibodeau type defense, this team could turn this around. But he wasn't making the moves necessary to do it. And then boom, right after that game, he did them.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And it really came down to the young guys, which Twitter has bbeen barking at for years now, since we went on that draft tear and got Obi and quickly, and I think it was 2021 or 2020. Since then, the fans have really been clamoring for the young guys to not just take starting spots, but the majority of the minutes at certain positions. And once he instituted Jericho Sims, Deuce McBride, and Quentin Grimes, really a home run trio on all accounts. Where they were picked, in what position, and where they're playing now, I think that was a real home run of three guys that have been really behind this resurgence of our defensive, and I think will also be behind the resurgence of our offensive game and come about a month or two when they're playing even bigger roles and find their shots and gaining more confidence. Absolutely.
It's good that you shout out that 2020 draft. That was tremendous, that draft. Actually, Hollinger also shouted out the 21 draft. He went back and looked at that draft again. And like, there's no real all-star breakouts there. Scotty Barnes has plateaued or didn't add anything over the summer to his game. Cade is hurt again, so it's hard to know what he's about. Mobley looks like, like he could be a fringe all-star, definitely a top defensive player. But, he actually shouted out Quentin Grimes. He thought he was a really interesting, promising player who could be a starter for the next 10 years on a good team.
I agree. It reminds me a lot of that I can't remember exactly the year. I want to guess 05 or 06 when we got David Lee, Nate Robinson, and Channing Frye all in the same draft. That trio reminds me a lot of that one. Yeah, where there's a potential for a star, which was David Lee.
All those guys played for a decade,
exactly,
at least.
And I think all three of these guys will have long careers, hopefully with the Knicks, but I think they're all built for this modern NBA, and all three have a tool set to thrive offensively in transition and also be locked down defenders that can all switch on defense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the defense is their main primary thing. Grimes and Deuce they're elite level type defenders.
Amen.
Sims seems to have all the physicality to become like that. He's not there yet. He still makes a lot of mistakes, but he definitely has shown promise. And he was a 58th pick, so you can't get that choosy. But I think he can also be a long-term piece on some, on a roster.
I want to give him some props, though. Of the three, I would agree that he has the most to go. But he is paired with Isaiah Hartenstein a lot, and that causes him to have to pick up a lot of his slack that Hart gives you or doesn't give you on defense. And I think puts him in positions where he has to help a lot, and he ends up being out of rotation because Hart's man blows by him, and he's really having to clean up a lot of damage done by the guards and Isaiah next to him in the front court. So I think once Obi replaces him, or he's playing more with Randall or even Mitch in the front court, I think a lot of that stuff will be cleaned up because he'll be in a better position to succeed.
I agree. I'm very hopeful for him. Very hopeful. And it is playing with Hart, it's been tricky for them defensively. But actually I thought Sims has played better defensively with Hart on the court than he was without Hart. And I think it's just helped him focus more. He plays the he plays the center. They switch it up between the center and the four position.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so it was a great draft. That's one thing. This franchise, this front office, has had some nice, a couple of nice drafts. Except the last one.
Agreed.
Really annoyed about that, them passing up on that. But that's it. That's for another day conversation. All right. Well, hey, we got Lex the Destroyer, best mod around. Thank you so much for joining us, Daniel Rosario. We got Mike Uno, man, Kareem Grant, Adrian Reality. Oh man, we got a great group here, Captain Matumbo. All right, let's get to the mid-season report. Here we go. All right. Well, now I blew the wad here. I had it all set up perfectly. All right, here we go. So here, these are the stats for the first 40 games that the Knicks have played, which is every game they've played this season. And the Knicks currently are 11th, they have the 11th best record in the entire NBA, 22-18. 11th best in the entire NBA. Did you think we'd be around here, Lee?
In the beginning of the season, yes. After the Dallas loss, hell no.
Yeah.
Not at all. I didn't think Tibbs had the acumen and really like the humility to change things up to the degree in which he did. And I'm really happy that he did. And it's made me quiet down on my fire Tibbs chance because him shortening the rotation and really putting an emphasis on actually running plays for Grimes when Grimes is replacing RJ in the lineup and running more pick and roll between Brunson and Mitch and really tightening up the defense and getting guys at IQ to buy on a defense and then rewarding him with shots and plays and really letting him have the reins on offense when he's with the bench unit at point. All those things have really culminated in guys not only getting their confidence up, but feeling like they have a real role in his offensive system, opposed to it being really random and chaotic or being orchestrated by someone who shouldn't be orchestrating it, like Alec Burks or Elfrid Payton. We actually have a fully functional offensive now. You know, all praise due to Jalen Brunson, but also to Deuce McBride and IQ for providing stability and depth at the point guard position too.
Absolutely. If you look here, the Knicks in offensive rating have the 9th best offensive efficiency team in the entire NBA right now. Just a tick. Interestingly enough, we have a better offense than the Cleveland Cavaliers.
There we go.
Not by much, by 0.3. But, I mean, that's something. Considering this was the concern. This is why I didn't want to clear out the cupboard for a Donovan Mitchell. Because, yes, of course, he's tremendous. He's having an amazing year. He's going to be the all-star starter. He's been fantastic. He's having a career year. But what we would have had to have given up compared to what the Cavs had to give up in terms of how it impacted their ability to continue winning, we would have had to have given up some key pieces.
I'm really glad you brought that up. I've seen kind of resurgence of that conversation after he dropped 71. I think it was last week when that happened about the Knicks should trade for him. I'm with you 100%. I still stand on the grounds that the team that he would have came to would have been much more depleted than the one he joined in Cleveland. It would have been like him, Mitch, Randall, Brunson, and like Fournier would have had to play major minutes.
Yeah,
Derrick Rose would have to be playing major minutes. I don't think Grimes would be here. IQ would be here. RJ's a question mark.
No, it would be RJ, Grimes, and either Obi or IQ, if not both.
And 5 years of draft control, 3
no
picks
picks.
and 2 swaps. Like if it doesn't work out, you're screwed, and you lose the ability to get that Nets trade because Donovan Mitchell with that combination is not winning a championship, not this year, not next year, not 2 years from now. So you also lack the assets to improve your roster further, but down the line with another trade.
Right. Exactly. So good. I'm glad we got that, got through that because it's true. I'm fine with where we are at. I'm ecstatic, actually, from where we're at. I predicted when I did a preseason prediction. I went through every game. There's a video out there. I predicted 47 wins. We win tonight. We're right on target for that. So here is the defensive rating. So the Knicks for the whole season, defensively, we have the 10th best defense, and that's really something considering we were like 28th. For the first 15 games or so of this season. In fact, not even, maybe even more. We were 20, like really in the low 20s. And in terms of the overall net rating, which is the most important stat, the Knicks for the entire season have the 8th best net rating team in the NBA. Better than the Suns, the Mavs, the Bucks, the Jazz, the Kings, Trailblazers, Timberwolves, where they're not. And then, I mean, just below the Denver Nuggets, who are quickly becoming my favorite to win it all this season if they can stay healthy.
Ooh,
yeah. And the Sixers, I like them. They scare me a lot. However, as we get into the strength of schedule, you'll see that I'm not. It's good. We have a little bit of a level playing field. Pelicans, I mean, they're dependent on. They need Zion, and now he's hurt. He's out, so we'll see. The Nets, again, similar for them. They're on the best roll in the NBA. They're, I think, a franchise record 21 wins, right? Or 20 wins or something. 20 out of 21, I think is what it is, or something like that.
Yeah, prayers to KD for that knee's not too torn up.
Yeah,
he got injured last night.
It's hope, because we want to see him compete, because it sucks when he's not out there. And then the Celtics and the Cavs, net rating, they're up there 1 and 2. You can see this is a very East heavy top 8, which so that shows that's where the Knicks are competing in. And let's go to the next slide here. Oh, we got a super chat for KD. Thank you so much, brother. What about trade RJ, Cam, IQ, and 5 first-round picks, 3 unprotected for Devin?
No,
Devin Booker.
That's a no from me.
That's a little much. It's a little much. But the 5. It's more the 5 first-round picks, because we're gonna have to give up players.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's more the picks. Because again, we're in a similar spot. What do we do afterwards? And you're giving up IQ, who's one of the best defensive guards in the entire NBA right now. Cam, he's going to have to go, so I don't mind that. And then RJ, they're going to want some kind of a young starter in return, and we got to make the money work. So, and RJ, unfortunately, having to be included is part of it. It's more the 5 first-round picks. That's the sticking point for me. I mean, it's definitely something as we move forward to keep an eye on, because the Suns they're kind of teetering. They're teetering, but it's a great super chat. Really appreciate that one. Actually, I'm going to save that. We might even come back to it later. All right, all right, so this is now looking at the last 20 games. So the previous 2 slides we're looking at the entire season. Now I'm showing you just the last 20 games to show you how the Knicks are moving up, becoming a better team than what than the actual full season graphics stats show you. Here, for offensive rating, we're up to 116.6, which is tied, which is a tick below the Jazz here, but for 6th best in the entire NBA. 6th best offense in the entire NBA in the last 20 games. But we have the 2nd best defense in the entire NBA, behind the Memphis Grizzlies, who are outstanding. So, and we haven't even right now even have a better defense than the Cavs. And we'll keep going to the next one here. And this is the net rating. Look at that. It's the Grizzlies number 1, Nets number 2, Knicks number 3, and the Nuggets number 4. I could see those being the 4 conference finals this year.
Wow. Whoa, hot take alert. Wow.
Just slip that in there.
I think we finally came to our first disagreement.
Yeah. I'm just saying, look, it's like when you look at this, you're like, wow, they keep going. I'm just saying, it's fun to look at it that way. Definitely the other 3 have potential to be conference finals teams. The Nets, I mean, the way they're playing, if KD comes back and is healthy, I worry for the Celtics having to battle them, and the Cavs having to battle them, and the Grizzlies and the Nuggets, because right now, I mean, the Warriors are, without Steph, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, so, I still like Milwaukee and Boston out of the East in the conference finals, depending on if they end up even matching up with each other on the seeding. And in the West, I like Denver.
Injuries keep hurting the Bucks.
Yeah. In the West, I like Denver and New Orleans. I love the roster that New Orleans has. If they didn't solidify their point guard position with another veteran, because they're depending a lot on Alvarado and Devontae Graham, I think they need a really solid veteran in there at that guard spot. Fred VanVleet, I'm not sure if they can pull off that miracle, but I think New Orleans has a real good chance to be a dark horse come playoff time.
Yeah, they do. They do. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Now let's go to the midseason report card. All right, we're starting with the bench first. And sorry about the alignment of the text. I don't know, something with PowerPoint when it gets brought into StreamYard shifts everything. Lee, you want to take us through your? We're very similar, but you want to take us through your report card?
Yeah, I don't see. Oh, this is the bench. Okay, we're doing the bench first.
The bench first.
Yeah, I think IQ's been the best. Both sides of the ball. I think he's really grown as a playmaker and a facilitator. He's also grown on defense. His shot is the one consistently hitting the three-point shot, and some of the boneheaded decision making is like the only reason why I didn't give him an A-. I think he still has room to grow. I think by the end of a year that could change to an A. Obi, we haven't seen enough, especially once Tibbs shortened the rotation. I don't think Obi's had enough of a role in that to really give him a grade above C, just because Brando's been so good. He has not had the opportunity to really thrive in a starting position or an increased minutes production. Sims has been solid. I mean, for a late second round pick, what more can you ask for at your third string center? I think he's outplayed Hartenstein much of the season. I gave him a solid B-. And then when Deuce and Grimes were both drafted, Deuce was my favorite. Between that duo, my dad really loved Grimes, but I really saw that dog mentality in Deuce, and we're finally seeing it unleashed. I'm so happy he's taking Derrick Rose's minutes and really running with it. And we finally have someone who can unleash on those like deadly guards that exist on almost every team, especially the playoff one, that all of them have a point of attack guard that's really hard to stop. And we finally have someone we can throw on them like New Orleans does with Alvarado or Sacramento does with Davion Mitchell. Fournier, production-wise, is probably lower than a C, but I've liked his attitude and the energy he's brought, even though he's not playing. I think he's really been a great teammate. And when he did play in that game against Toronto, I loved just the action that he was providing. It wasn't a whole lot of three-point shooting. He's diving on for loose balls. He was trying to play his best defense. He's bringing energy off the bench. I appreciated him. I've never hated him. I liked his game. Really liked his game in Orlando. It just never really translated fully here, because he didn't also do some secondary playmaking. We haven't seen a whole lot of that. The same reason we haven't seen a whole lot from Hartenstein too. I don't see Hart. Oh, there's Hart. Hart's a C. Trash. He's really the only player that I don't have like a deep-seated affection for, just because there's something about him. It just resonates soft to me. I do think he tries. He plays hard. He gives effort, and he's skilled, but he doesn't fit the identity of his team. I think if he was on Dallas, he would be cooking in that pick and roll with Luka as a lob threat and a secondary playmaker and operating out of the high post and find Josh Green and Finney Smith. He would dominate. Yeah. But on this team, the way that we play, he's just not a good fit for the rest of his roster. Derrick Rose, also love his leadership. Love how he's taking these young guards under his wing and keeping guys accountable. I think a lot of the reason why Julius Randle's turned it around has probably been Derrick Rose in his ear, both on the court and off the court, trying to keep him composed and poised and a leader verbally, which has been great. Cam Reddish, I went back and forth on the F to a D. I kind of wanted to give him an F, but that's also Tibbs' fault. I think that has been a real mismanagement of an asset and a player and a person, like a human being. I think he's been mismanaged almost ethically, just by the front office and the coach in terms of when he gets opportunities and when he doesn't. Why is he not playing? No answers given. That old haunting of how MSG works under Dolan has still kind of surrounded Cam Reddish's mystery of why he isn't playing, because they just don't talk to the press. And that's been a real disappointment to get a real honest answer why Cam Reddish isn't playing, when talent-wise, he's probably the most talented player on the bench. In my opinion, he is. So, yeah, I gave him a D because he had that spurt in the beginning of the season, and then once he was out of the rotation, we haven't heard from him. He's been a ghost.
All right. Well, I love all that. Oh, by the way, before we get going, if you're in the chat, please hit the thumbs up button for me. Very much appreciate that. And share this video with people. Share the live stream. Get people to know more about it, the pregame shows. And because the pregame shows are more than just pregame shows. We get into in depth here, like we're doing here with the midseason report cards. Well, I love it. I love everything you said. The only thing is, the thing about Hartenstein, to give him a little bit of a pass. Apparently, he had that Achilles injury, and he said what did he say? He was at 80%, 70%. This is more like in the first 5-10 games of the season. He came out with that. And also, Thibs has like changed his game. I mean, we got him here to be a playmaking big, and he's turned him into a Mitch Robinson type guy.
Agree with that.
And that's not his thing. So it exposes him more. Whereby Sims has the athleticism that Robinson has, if not even more so. He's just smaller. But Sims has that. So Sims can emulate that Mitch type style of play where iHeart can't. And the thing is, we don't want iHeart to. So that's a big failing on the coaching and the assistant coaches. They should figure that out, how to utilize him in that manner with the bench, especially when you have guys like IQ who are now in the starting rotation, and you need guys to help, do some playmaking in that second unit. So that's why I kept him at a C, but for different reasons. We had different reasons for that. I think he should be hitting his 3-point shot more. Yes. That's one thing, and he's passing it up, and that's kind of hurting the flow of it's hurting the whole point of having him here. I've seen him pass up at least in the past couple of games, at least 2 or 3 attempts that he could have taken in each of those games. Maybe he passes up on one and he attempts 2 others. He needs to do that, because if he starts hitting them, that's going to make Thibs want to use him in that way more. It's a catch-22 with Thibs. He needs to kind of see it before he can believe it, but people kind of need to be given the green light so that he can see it. So it's always tricky with that.
I was going to say, if you want indictment of Thibs' lack of creativity offensively, just look at the mismanagement of Evan Fournier, Cam Reddish, Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, those 3 guys have a lot more to give in terms of the arsenal of their ability, and we've only barely scratched the surface of that.
I agree. Hundy. IQ, to me, I give him an A- because of his defense that he's been giving us throughout the whole season. When you look at the defensive ratings for all the guards in the NBA, that have played at least 25 games, number 1 is Matisse Thybulle with a 101.2 defensive rating. Number 2 is Deuce McBride with a 101.3. But Deuce hasn't played as many games. He hasn't played pivotal minutes until recently, not in the beginning. But Emmanuel Quickley, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, has the 6th best defensive rating of all guards in the NBA. That just speaks for itself. A bet above Dylan Brooks, Javen Carter, Jose Alvarado. I mean, these are real stats. So to me, his defense and now his shot is still, he's still, one night he hits a couple of 3-pointers, another night he goes 1 for 7. So that's really inconsistent. But his mid-range game, his floater game has been on point, and he's been finishing at the hoop at a nice pace. So I'm loving everything he's providing for the team, and he was put in a tough position as well. He got off to a rocky start, but he really corrected it, and he never quit on defense, which I love that. Obi, I'm giving him a B-, because I felt those first 10 games were just outstanding. But something went wrong. Something derailed him, and it could be now that maybe he was nursing an injury or here and there. We don't know. So unfortunately, he probably deserves more of a C+. I gave him a B- just to be a little kind to him. Sims could almost be a straight B right here, but I love his athleticism, and the thing is, he has more to give. He just doesn't do it, and it might be, again, the Tom Thibodeau factor. Deuce gets a B, mostly just because his 3-point shooting has been so inconsistent. If he got that to at least a consistent 35%, that could easily be an A when you consider the offense that he provides. But he has struggled beating his man off the dribble. I think his handle's a little looser than I wished it would be. So he's a work in progress, but because of his outstanding defense, I'll show you, he's second best in the entire NBA, and you can see it when he's in the game. It makes a tremendous difference. Fournier, he gets a C, mostly because he's, I think the real story with Fournier is, I think he was burnt out. He has played so many minutes, so many games in the past 2 years, because you got to factor in with the Olympics, the World Cup, the FIBA, or the Euro basket thing that he played in, just a lot of minutes, and then he played a lot of minutes last season, and then he did have nursed an injury in the previous season when he was with the Celtics, but I think he just kind of burnt out, and he wasn't ready in his conditioning to come in and apply to be the defensive player where he can be just competent enough to hold on to that starting position. And when you have a guy like Grimes just right there, it was pretty an easy shift. So he gets a C mostly because of his circumstances. D Rose gets a C because I feels like he's lost a little something.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. And Reddish, I'm giving him a C mostly because I do feel like he's also someone his chain's been jerked a little bit here and there. Could he have been better on the defensive end? Yes. I know a lot of people think he's great defensively, but when you look at all the metrics, he was the worst. He was the worst starter. Worse than Fournier. Worse than Fournier. I know it's hard to grasp that, but that's just the reality of that, which is why he's on the bench. But I do think he deserves a better shot. Now let's get to the starters, coach, and the team. Now let's just go back and we'll just do it together. Randall, I give him Randall an A+. I'm giving him an A+ mostly because his commitment on the defensive end since those first 10, 15 games of the season, since then, he has just been, I mean, he's been a different person. And other than like one moment here and there where the moodiness creeps in, he snaps back, gets it back together. His conditioning is outstanding. His playmaking, he's now making decisions so much faster. His style of play, and Lee, and this is the main reason why I'm giving this. The guy that we're seeing right now, the guy that we've been seeing in the last 20 games especially, that kind of player can be one of your best players on a contending team.
Agreed.
So that's why I'm giving him an A+. And I would still trade him. Only because I don't believe it. I fear that can he keep this going. But you know what? He's here, and I'm going to keep praying that he does keep going that way.
Our picks are so similar. They're like 0.5 differential. When we disagree, it's like such a slight margin of difference between them. And I think you're a little nicer than me on the bench, and I might be a little nicer than you with the starters. Randall is the only exception. I just need more. It's great that like the first half of the season, he's went from, I mean, I was one of the loudest people, at least small media wise, wanting him gone. I don't know if there's a voice louder than mine, besides the Toxic Boys, but he's completely turned around. And I actually advocate on the last At the Time show. I think he should be an MVP candidate. Don't think he should win. Don't think he should be top 3, but he should be talked about in the conversation. He should be a candidate for most valuable player because of all the metrics you showed: net, offense, defense, record, all these things. First time over 500 going into the new year, largely is on the back of him and Jalen Brunson. I think that it's like 60% Randall, 40% Brunson when thinking about those two players, only those two players together carrying the load. Randall has been unbelievable because he's really our best rebounder, scorer, probably our third best defender, and second best playmaker. He's been unbelievable this year, vocally keeping his composure, hitting clutch shots, dominating down the stretch, and really overcoming one of the worst regressions mentally and emotionally that I've seen in a player since I've been watching ball, which started in 2000. So I really haven't seen a roller coaster like him, but I just need to see more. I need to see it longer.
It's same. We're at the same point. I mean, if he replicates going forward in the next 41 games, he replicates what he's done in the past 20 games, just step and repeats it. That's MVP worthy of a vote or two, for sure. But as our good friend, shout out to I Do Wonders. Thank you so much for the super chat. We need an offensive scheme other than iso ball. Well, you know what? We do. We have one. We've seen it. That's one of the reasons that the team has gotten better. But the problem is that as the fourth quarter comes around, this is Thibs' default. He goes down to that two-man game, the ISO game, just Randall with Brunson.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, and I was very critical of it in the past couple of games. I get into this constant back and forth battle with JD talking about Brunson, and it just I think it's emboldened upon the players themselves to play the style of play that can be the most effective because their coach is going to do what he's going to do. But Brunson, he can give the ball to IQ, which he has. I've seen him do it. And then he goes and plays the off guard position. The ball comes around, it gets back into Brunson's hands. But the defense is a little softer because IQ he tries to, he can beat his guy, gets around, even though someone closes out on him, he passes the ball out, or he scores and makes life easier for Brunson and Randall. So it's not all on their shoulders in those closing minutes, especially in the fourth quarter, more like that, the beginning to like the 6 to 8 minute mark of that fourth quarter. Those last 4 minutes is just pure ISO, and it's a problem. It's definitely a problem. The Nick of Time show shout out to Jay Ellis. Speaking of the man himself, if Randall closed better, he'd get the plus. Yeah, that's and it comes again, minutes. I know people don't want to talk about that, but it's attrition over time. You just don't have the gas in the tank in your legs to be that kind of guy. Brunson somehow is able to do it. But even he struggles at times. He made a lot of turnovers that last game. So it's tricky there. The next guy, Brunson, we both give him an A. What kept you from giving him an A+?
The over-dribbling, the slow start to a 3-point percentage in the beginning of the season, and sometimes the missed free throws. It's been hard to chart. Like, has he been how long he's been bad at free throws? Because I feel like he'll have a game where he'll hit him down the stretch, and I'm like, oh, actually, maybe I've been over embellishing how bad he's been at the free throw line. But yeah, the free throw line, dribbling the air out of the ball in the fourth quarter, which is compounded with Thibs' ISO play, Randall's ISO play, RJ's tendency to go ISO in the fourth quarter. I think that part hasn't gelled yet, and we haven't really developed a fourth quarter late game identity in terms of like what are the 4 or 5 plays that we could go to that are guaranteed as a high percentage bucket in crunch time. We don't have those yet. We're actually better out of balance than we are in a full stop like setup at the half court line. So yeah, that's the only reason. He's been Mr. Clutch, been a great leader, has really revitalized the team. And orchestrate the offense to get guys that have difficulty initiating their own shot easier buckets. I think he's made the game easier on Randall, made the game easier on Mitch, RJ, and Thibs, most of all, made the game easier on Thibs. I think he's really taken a lot of the heat off of him for us being the type of predictable offensive scheme. Brunson has added a new wrinkle to that, at least in the first 3 quarters of a game.
I agree with all of that, all of those issues. I tell you, one little beef I have, and we're seeing it a little more, is like, why not develop more of a 2-man game with Mitch? I feel like that's like money in the bank. I mean, literally, it can be. Just Brunson breaks down his defender better than anyone I've seen, gets into the paint, and then you have Mitch, this redwood tree right there, just lob it up to him. They quite once in a while you see it, but not enough. RJ is the best one at feeding Mitch.
100%. It has been really since RJ was drafted. I think that we haven't really had a player, Elford or Randall. No one has fed Mitch as well and as often as RJ.
Yeah. So and then also defensively, he is an absolute liability defensively. And especially against bigger guards. That's another reason why we see in the fourth quarters why he does struggle, because other teams, they'll switch. They'll put a big guard on. They put Sohan on him. They'll put Juancho. Well, actually, what's funny is that Hernan Gomez didn't even play the last game. But the previous game, he was a nightmare for Brunson. Brunson struggles against that. So, and that's just and the reverse as well. Him guarding bigger guards is a challenge for him. So, but he could easily be an A+ if he developed more of a 2-man game with Mitch. Number one. Number two, if he didn't lean so heavily into the ISO requests from his own coach, especially in the fourth quarter. Keep that team loose, keep it flowing, keep that ball moving. I know I heard Alan Hahn say, well, in fourth quarters, you don't want to do that because, then you can make mistakes. Well, guess what? He makes mistakes anyway. Trying to work so hard for the shot, ball dribbles off his foot out of a backcourt pass. The mistakes are there. And we saw Randall doing it last season. It's just too much of a burden, especially in that fourth quarter after playing such heavy minutes. But the best thing about Brunson, has been the effect that he has had on Julius Randle up here. I think he has been the calming influence that Randle lacked all last season. And it's the same also to give and shout out to JD because he pointed this out. He says he's also had a tremendous impact on IQ. I think I agree with that as well. So the leadership, the mentorship, all that stuff is tremendous. You know what? I almost think he deserves that plus, even though defensively he's a liability. But RJ, you and I differ a little bit. You gave him a B minus. I gave him a B.
He's been roughly the same player that we saw last year. So I gave him a B based on consistency. He did get out of his shooting slump a little bit earlier than he did the 2 or 3 years prior. So I didn't knock him too much, but I wanted to see like new dimensions to his game. Wanted to see that the mid-range area improve some. Wanted to see his handle tighten up. Wanted to see him finish better around the rim more consistently. There were bursts. There were 2 or 3 game bursts where we saw that. But I think overall there's still a pretty solid improvement needed there in terms of finishing around the basket, especially when I look at Quentin Grimes and how well and efficient he finishes around the basket in comparison to RJ Barrett, who's bigger, stronger, has a wider wingspan, really should be able to finish at a higher mark. I think it's like he just zoned out. He just tunnel vision, driving to the hoop. He puts his head down instead of looking up. It's the way he cradles the ball. It's the way where he's holding the ball and the position of his body when he's driving to the hoop. It's the tendency to really go left a lot, even though he's mixed it up more in the last 2 seasons. But there's a lot of things there that I just wish he would become a more efficient player. Mm-hmm. And the moment he becomes a more efficient player, I think that's when we see him thrive better in the mid-range, become a better three-point shooter and a better free throw shooter. I mean, once those metrics start rising, then I'll be looking at him as an A minus player. But for right now, he hasn't gotten worse. So I gave him a B minus.
Gotcha. That's very fair. And the only reason I kind of gave him a B is because he had a weird off season. And I think it severely impacted him. He was in limbo. And he admitted it. And I was going to bring this up in one show. And then he actually admitted it in an interview. Because he was waiting on the contract, he did not play any actual games during the summer. Notice we didn't see him when Randall and Brunson and Obi played in Brooklyn. He didn't come out to LA to play with the guys out here or in any of those games in Manhattan. You can't get your conditioning up, and then that contributed to him starting out slow. And the reason he didn't want to play because if he played and some injury happens, that screws up his contract. Also, I think he was hearing the rumors that he's probably part of that Donovan Mitchell trade. So there was all this uncertainty. So what he did was just worked out with his trainer, but didn't play any games. And then he wasn't in the right conditioning. The season starts, gets off to a terrible start once again. But he was put in that position because of what the Knicks were trying to do in the offseason, which is either trade for Donovan Mitchell. So his contract, the RJ contract, was put on hold until then. And then once that was, figured out, September 1st, they signed the contract. But by then, training camp was only 3 weeks away. So it wasn't enough time to get into real game conditioning. And then, in the preseason, you can only do so much. Actually, he looked pretty good in the preseason, ironically. But it's, once real games start, it's a whole different story. So that's the only reason I gave him that B. But he could easily, be right there with a B minus. But that Chicago game, that was a masterpiece. And doing what he did is not easy at all. It's not just, anyone can. No, you don't shoot 70% against a Bulls team like that and score 44 and it means nothing. And hit all 6 of his 3-point shots. Hit all 6 of them. That was an outstanding. That was a masterpiece. That's in him. We want to see more of that and consistently. And like you said, his finishing has to get up there. But I think the finishing also is related to the poor conditioning. So,
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So let's hope that. But you got to roll through these a little quicker. Mitch, I give him a B plus. I think he's probably one of the most impactful defensive players in the NBA right now. The team is totally different when he's off the court defensively compared to when he's on the court. But I think he does suffer from a lack of, no one's really feeding him. He needs to be fed. That's just the way his game is structured. He needs to be fed, so we're not maximizing him enough. You gave him a B. Want to drop a few notes on him?
I agree. And the fact that he's not getting maximized enough is no fault of his. Really, I wouldn't even put the majority of that blame on our guards. I would put that blame on Tibbs, not trying to get him fed and rewarding him for the effort that he puts forth, rebounding, especially offensive rebounding and defense. He should be getting more touches than he is. Maybe even some plays ran for him. I saw there's a few games where first or second play of a game would be a play for Mitch to try to get him a lob or an easy bucket down low, but that needs to be more often. I wouldn't even mind seeing it at the start.
It's usually RJ that initiates that play.
Wouldn't mind seeing it at the start of every quarter, and maybe even before it ends, depending on where the lead is. But his stats are about the same as they were last year, so there wasn't like an improved mark or increase. So I didn't jump up to an A, but his value on the court cannot be overstated. He's the anchor of our defense, and I think between him and Grimes, there's no player in the NBA that
roll into Grimes.
Yeah, that we can't put a body on. Because Mitch can guard the bigs and Grimes can guard the wings, and Mitch really gets up for those games against the real good players like the Giannis's and the Embiids. He gets up and plays real hard for those. So kudos to him for having a great mentality and maturing over the years. He still needs to work on his conditioning a little bit. He seems to get winded and tired, which ends up being where he just has foul-prone games. But overall solid. Grimes, man, I don't know if there's a player right now that I love more than Grimes besides Brunson. I love everything about Grimes' game. I think we're just scratching the surface of his potential. I really think this guy, and we've had discussions on the KOT show, I think he's got a higher ceiling than RJ. I think he's a more efficient.
So you're in that camp.
He's a more efficient scorer, finisher, and shooter. He has the better mechanics than RJ. I think RJ's put in more work and right now has a bigger toolbox to pull from. But I think Grimes has more potential once he learns those tools to become a more efficient player and a better player than RJ Barrett. But I love that we have this conversation. We have two guys we can even compete with. When's the last time we had that? It's been a real long time. So kudos to both of them. But Grimes is inserting him to the starting lineup. He's glue. He really holds that starting unit together. He doesn't need plays ran for him. He just catches and shoots, knock down threes, timely threes in the last 10 or 15 games. And he's just he works in any system, under any coach, with any players around him. He can thrive. And you can't say that about very many players on this team.
Love that. I gave him a B+ because of what you said. He can be better. I think he disappears a little bit too much offensively sometimes. I think he's got to be a little more aggressive in asking for the ball, especially without RJ on the court. I want to see, and it's tough. It's tough for him because he's only a second-year player, and he finally became the starter. But I just want to see more from him. So I'm giving him a B+ for that reason alone. But man, this guy, I at the end of last season, I said Grimes should be the starting shooting guard for the New York Knicks next season. I don't care how much Fournier makes. It's irrelevant. It's a sunk cost. Put him on the bench. Have him. I wanted Fournier to be a part of the bench, to be that 6-man or 7th-man sniper that comes in and just shoots and just worries about that and plays competent enough defense against the other team's second unit as opposed to playing against their first unit. I didn't want him benched completely and out of the rotation, but Grimes had to start. Had to, especially with Brunson coming in as the point guard because defensively we're taking a hit. Burks was definitely a defensive presence, and so was Elfrid the year before. So when you bring in Brunson in a Thibodeau scheme, you're going to suffer out on the perimeter. So you had to have Grimes instead of Fournier. So I'm glad that
100%.
Thibs did that. So this rolls me into the Thibs story. I'm going to roll into it because we're running out of time. The game's going to start pretty soon. Thibs gets a B, in my opinion, mostly because it takes him too long to make his adjustments. He finally is getting there, which is a lot more than we can say from last season. The brutality that he threw at us by starting Burks at point, and the year before sticking with Elfrid, where we could have been, going with Derrick Rose. It just made me insane. And his over reliance on ISOs, his drop back defenses when killing us. It takes him so long to make these adjustments, but to shout him out, he's finally eventually making them, which is why when he went to the 9-man rotation and took Fournier and Reddish out and inserted Deuce in, it was a little late in doing that, but I'm so happy he finally got around there, because we know with Thibs, he could have gone the whole season doing the same shit.
Man, the man really frustrates the hell out of me. I'm still not a fan. I still want him fired. I don't think he'll be fired. I think he will play out the remainder of his contract. He'll be the first coach to do so since I don't even know when. And the reason is not because he deserves it, but because this front office is obsessed with optics. And there's no way that Leon Rose, who was Tibbs' agent before he was his boss, they're best friends. You know, they go way back. There's no way he's going to fire someone he's so close to. And also because it would signal that he made a grave mistake. Tibbs has been his splashiest signing since before Brunson. So for him to fire Tibbs, it signals that there was a huge misstep there in direction and the culture that he was trying to bring, and who a coach he thought eventually could lead him to a championship. I don't think Tibbs is that guy. I think Tibbs has turned a corner in his ability to add a little humility to his mindset as a coach by instituting, a shorter rotation and activating Jalen Brunson as a primary offensive orchestrator and really helping Julius Randle become who he was in that MIP season. But the deficiencies are still there, and they're glaring, and they're more glaring than almost any other coach in the NBA outside of like Mike Brown. Like, I really think Tibbs is a dinosaur stuck in a 2007 mentality. And I know that you can point to the 100 game. There's always metrics. So defensive rating, offensive rating. We hit the 100 game threshold. I want to see in the playoffs. If we get bounced in the first round in a 5-game series again, this man's got to go. I don't trust him come playoff time to be a different coach, to adjust on the fly, to change his game plan, to drop the arrogance and really institute a scheme that's dependent on who you're playing, the matchups that you have, and the pieces you have at your disposal. I don't fully believe in him yet as a coach in the playoffs. I love all these regular season, accomplishments, but they're really meaningless in the grand scheme of things if he did bounce in the first round again. And if he does, get the man out of NYC.
I'm with you 100% on all of that. His style, he does seem to get out coached often in games, and in playoffs, you can adjust from one game to the next, but after 3 games, you're almost done. So you really got to be ahead of your opponent in terms of how you align your offense and defense to maximize their potential. Mm-hmm. He seems to always kind of like he basically likes the team to play a certain style all the way through, the same style in the regular season as they play in the postseason, and that doesn't really work.
Nope.
It doesn't really work. So we're going to see. Again, like you're right. If he doesn't, if this team finishes in the 6th seed or somehow 5th seed in the East, and we lose in that first round, or we don't make it competitive, we get gentlemen swept, that's going to be brutal. That's brutal. Yeah. So, and here's the other thing. I believe, and now people may disagree with me on this, but I have believed even since last season that we have a better roster than our record has shown.
Agreed.
And I think we're finally living up to it now. And and even still, we got RJ coming back and we got Obi coming back. So that's even more of a testament that our roster has depth and quality up and down it. He just wasn't utilizing it properly. So that's then that he gets knocked down for that. But the team overall, I give the team an A right now, a solid A in my opinion, because they never quit. There's some weird moments here and there, but the team as a whole, and even when it looked dark after that Dallas game, they didn't quit. Randall called that team meeting, which I thought was incredibly ironic, but it worked out really well, and it's worked since then. They've been a completely different team. So I give them an A, no doubt. One thing to circle back to Grimes, the whole idea that could be better, to have a higher ceiling than RJ and all that stuff. I love that discussion. Like you said, we're lucky to have that be a discussion. But Grimes has the ability to be a Klay Thompson-esque type player, like the B+ version of him, which would basically be outstanding for us.
Agreed. It's kind of odd. If this was 2005, I might say RJ has the potential to be the better player, but because the offensive schematics have trended so much toward the 3-point line and the importance of 3-point shot and be able to switch on defense, I think Grimes' game fits the more modern persona than RJ Barrett.
I agree. The only thing is, even though despite all the, he gets to beat people to the hoop and everything, RJ is just an unstoppable presence on the floor. When you need someone to drive, he's unbelievably unstoppable. That guy is. Yep. It's physicality as well. So that's the little plus side he gets. He doesn't have the technique necessarily that Grimes is showing us, but man, does he have the strength to get there?
Amen.
All right, I think the game has started already. So, but let's see. Let's keep going here. This is what I wanted to show you guys, and we're going to make it full screen. Show you this here before we keep going. So this is the strength of schedule moving forward. So the games played in the East. The Knicks played the 25th softest schedule, the 25th strongest schedule. Let's put it this way, of so far, the first 40 games. Detroit has played the hardest, the third hardest. I mean, Toronto's played the hardest. Wizards have played the fourth hardest. And those guys have all kind of struggled, so you can see. And then games unplayed, that's the orange section in the middle there. Like Atlanta will face the 5th hardest schedule. Brooklyn, the 8th hardest. The Knicks are going to face the 2nd hardest schedule in the entire NBA moving forward. Only team that will face a harder schedule will be the Philadelphia 76ers. Now we're looking at that 5th seed and 6th seed. We're looking at like Miami trying to compete with us. All right, their schedule moving forward, the 3rd hardest. Milwaukee has the 6th hardest. Who else will be competing with us for that? I guess the Hawks, the number 5. The Cavs. Indiana's not even. Indiana has the 7th hardest. So at least the teams that are going to be dueling it out with us for that 6th seed all have somewhat of a difficult strength of schedule in comparison to the rest of the NBA. But us and the Sixers have the most difficult schedules.
The 50 burger is going to be hard to get, but boys, it's going to taste great when we get it.
Yeah, I get a double. All right, man. Well, this has been great.
Hell yeah.
I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. It's a blessing.
The Knicks are up. The game has started. The Knicks are losing 10-2 already. 8 minutes and 10 seconds into the game. I think he just got fouled, Brunson did. But
and my girlfriend already has it on the TV ready for me once I finish this, which is why I'm gonna marry her one day.
All right, good choice. All right, well, thanks everyone for tuning in, man. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and share this show with other people and hit the thumbs up button for me. Really appreciate that. And Lee, you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, I just dropped me and the team's Twitters on chat because I wouldn't be here without my Nick of Time guys. So Ryan G is at Ryan G KOT. JLS is at the KOT show, and I'm at @_Lee Escobedo. Follow us. We're always talking Knicks, talking trash, and getting the smoke.
Love it. They have a great post-game show. I watch almost every one of them. I love it.
Appreciate that.
And shout out to Lex the Destroyer. We survey 100 people. Best mods around. Really appreciate everything you do. And hopefully we're going to keep doing some more lives. Love to have you back on the show.
I'll be honored.
Yeah, man. It'd be great. It would be awesome. And again, my name is George. I'm into the Knicks-Verse. Follow me on Twitter, and I will see you around the Knicks-Verse.